All right, we're good to go.
Alrighty. I'm even going to turn my phone off.
I guess we're just gonna ramble on for about an hour or so, talk about whatever the heck we want to.
Sounds like a plan.
So let me start by asking, what inspired you to want to get into the business? Oh crap! Hold on. I forgot to do my introduction.
Great. Here we go. Let's do it.
Hey guys, what's up? This is the Wheelchair Walkthroughs podcast. I think this is episode 3 now. I got my buddy Bryan Behar on the line.
Hey.
Did I get your name right?
You did. You're one of the first people to pronounce it correctly.
Anyway, he's a TV producer, and he's got quite a few impressive episodes under his belt that he's written.
Oh, thank you. I didn't know if I was supposed to respond to that or not.
Yeah, so yeah, you can go ahead and chime in anytime you want to. So we're just gonna talk about all kinds of stuff for about an hour or so. So I hope you guys enjoy.
Well, yes, I appreciate you having me. This is been a long time. It's been a long time coming.
Oh, dude, I know. I've known Bryan for about, I'd say it's almost a year now. We haven't really been talking that much. We started talking a lot, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, I think.
Yeah, and this and here we are. We're doing it.
Yay! Finally.
All right.
So let me start by asking, are you interested in hearing my show? I was going to pitch a show to you if you're interested.
No, that's okay. No, that is as Chase knows, that's just about the only
yeah,
the only downside of finally breaking into the TV business like I did is people hitting you up then in the most awkward situations with, "Hey man, I got a show I want to pitch you," because it's always under the guise of, "Hey, I haven't talked to you in a long time.
Hey, let's go for dinner so I can waste an hour of your life on bullshit."
Yeah, so it's he knows that's probably the closest thing I have to a pet peeve. I swear that I'm very supportive of new writers. I read lots of people's stuff. I give notes on people's spec scripts. I meet with lots of young writers, but friends of mine coming to me under the guise of wanting to renew old friendships and then blindsiding me with, "Hey, I've got the greatest idea."
Yeah.
Because one, it's kind of it just sort of hurts my feelings because I was thinking, "Hey, somebody wants to be my friend,"
and they never do.
And the other, even TV writers have feelings,
right,
And the other thing is, they're never good ideas.
Yeah,
I swear to God, it's always one guy's like, "Hey man, we should reboot Sanford and Son." And
another guy, what the heck? Seriously?
Another guy was like, "We should reboot the Brady Bunch." It's like, I don't even know if those are good ideas. But I don't own either of those shows.
You said you don't know of Sanford and Son?
Oh, I know Sanford and Son. I don't own Sanford and Son.
You said. I thought you said you don't know of any of those shows. I'm like, how the hell does a TV producer not know about Sanford and Son?
Margaret, I'm coming to join. Elizabeth, I'm coming to join you.
Oh man, that was a classic.
Believe me, I know. I know Sanford and Son. I know all the stories from Red Fox. Apparently he cleaned house after the first season of Sanford and Son and brought in a whole different writing crew that didn't work out as well. So he was reported to say, "Get me my Jews back."
Right.
So
I do have a question for you though. I recall sending you some of my stuff. I don't remember if we talked about it or what. I remember discussing it briefly. But it was a book that I've been writing for the last year or so.
That's right.
I don't know if you had read it. I don't know if I even sent it to you or not.
Now that you mention it, I do remember reading some stuff and talking to you about it briefly. So I'll try not to hold that against you, though.
Yeah, right. See, let's start with the damn questions. I don't want to ramble on about bullshit for an hour. So
it's up to you. It's your hour, man.
What do you think? What made you say, "Hey, I want to be in show business. I want to test my writing chops and see if I've got what it takes"?
Well, that's a good question.
Hold on, I lost you for a second. Where'd you go? There you go. Hold on.
I'm here.
I lost you for a second. You said that's a good question, and then it cut out.
That answer?
No, I think my Skype is cutting out. Okay, hold on. Let me see.
Okay, I'm here.
Oh well, shit. Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. Anyway, what was it that inspired you to want to be in the business?
Yeah, like I was saying, I tell people who are breaking in or who are aspiring to get into the TV business, like, if you can do anything else, you should.
Right. Exactly.
Because it is a pretty tough row to hoe. But on the flip side, if you can't imagine yourself doing anything else, and like you have to pursue it, then there's probably a reason you're telling yourself that.
Right.
You definitely should. Like, I was not funny growing up. I mean, one could argue, and I'm sure my writing partner would say I'm not funny now.
Yeah.
I think I've been able to fake it pretty well for the last couple decades, which shocks me.
Yeah.
But like, I was incredibly shy as a kid. I probably have already said more words on this podcast than I did throughout elementary school. So like, I don't think I was like destined to be a comedy writer. Like, nobody who I went to grade school with was like, oh, that guy, he's gonna get paid to make us laugh.
Yeah.
But oftentimes it's the people who aren't super outgoing, who are more observers, who find themselves sort of drawn to writing. Those who have some sort of psychic pain, that you're trying to heal. I mean, I think you'll find that whether it's musicians or artists or writers, there's usually a reason that people are drawn to trying to express themselves and process their feelings. Now, how does that doesn't necessarily mean you become a professional writer for TV.
Right.
But like I wrote a speech in high school, 9th grade, like, for a speech class, and I wasn't even trying to be funny, and it was like a speech about I don't know if this dates it. It was about the show Dallas.
Oh, hell. How fucking old are you, Brian? Jeez.
I'm a couple hundred years old. I'm still one of the younger writers on Fuller House, but I am 200. But the thing is, like, I started getting these laughs, and I was like, well, that was weird. Because I don't think of myself as funny. Right. I remember my parents came to this banquet a few years later where I was sort of the MC, and they're like, wow, you've lived in our house for 18 years. We had no idea you were funny.
Right.
Like, that was not like a big part of my personality at home, but it's something that, I started to sort of develop. I think a lot of it had to do with going to an all-boys high school where being funny was like really the only defense I had. Right. So you sort of develop it. I think for me, over the years, you do know I'm disabled, correct? I do know that, yes.
Okay, over the years, humor is. Can you hear me all right? I don't know if I'm coming through clear or not.
I hear everything. Keep going.
Humor to me is sort of a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way. I sure wish I could feel my legs, or some kind of bullshit joke about being handicapped every once in a while. When I first got out of high school, it was when I started to, when I got out of high school, I grew the fuck up really quick because I was living with my parents for 18 years. Obviously, he's disabled, so we're gonna have to baby him for his whole life, And then I actually moved out to I guess it was a group home on a really, really big scale. I think there were 200, 300 people there easily.
Wow.
And yeah, so after that, like that was the time that I had to sort of, grow up, and that was the time that I had gotten to spend in the real world. And the more I learn, the easier it is to accept. Hey, you're in a wheelchair, and there's not a damn thing you can do to change it. So it's like, it's not the ideal circumstance, but I don't hate myself for it. But it's nice to be able to use humor to let people know, hey, I know that I'm like this, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I think you've hit upon something that's really both truthful and universal, which is, people who gravitate towards humor or the comedy world are almost invariably using it as a defense mechanism for something. Right. Whether they are disabled, whether they are part of a group that is historically disenfranchised, whether they have been bullied, whether they had a difficult childhood, whether there's something in their home that they're, with their family of origin that they're working through.
Right.
All those are cases which could ultimately get you towards using humor as a way of processing it. So, like,
right.
I mean, like, obviously you and I, we don't know each other, and our circumstances are very different.
Right.
But I think the reasons we've both found humor, and humor in our writing, and humor, in our daily lives, are, come from a very similar place, which is,
right.
It's a means of coping. It's a way of being able to deal with the world. It's a way of being able to process your hurt. Right. And it's a way of putting other people at ease, when dealing with your difficult topics.
Right.
So, like, I don't have specifically what you have, but
right.
I've had things over the years.
That's because you're freaking old. I'm just kidding.
I am very old. I think that is something that we can both agree on.
I don't know. I'm just picking at you, man. I love you to death, dude.
Oh, that's all right. I don't think you would have chased this interview down if you had actually known.
Yeah.
If you had actually known that I was born before the days of television, but
yeah.
No, I'm kidding about that. But I'm up there in years, so.
Yeah.
But maybe we shouldn't stress that in case anyone's still in business.
Yeah.
I'd rather they not know exactly how old I am, but
right.
Let's just say it's older than you think.
So I was looking at your IMDb for a little bit, because admittedly I don't know you from Adam. We've already kind of discussed that a little bit, so I had to, what's this old son of a bitch been working on? What is he known for, so to speak? And I saw that you'd written
Tell me what I'm known for. I don't know.
I saw that you'd written for a couple of episodes of Glenn Martin DDS.
Yeah, no, I was there as a co-executive producer for both seasons.
Oh wow, yeah, I don't remember it. I don't remember it so much now. I watched it when it was out.
Well, we did 44 episodes, which for me is like 20 seasons.
Right.
I'm usually an expert at being on shows that have come and gone in 6 weeks. So, to have that kind of, up until Fuller House, Glenn Martin was the only show. Glenn Martin was the only show that I had ever come back to.
Right.
That's both a function of shows not coming back, or my partner and I not being asked back. It's
right.
I've now done. I think I also looked at the same IMDb to try to remember what I'm known for. Right. And I've now been on 22 shows in 22 years, which some people may look at it as a positive, like, wow, he works. He's employable in TV, whereas other people might see that and be like, holy shit, it's like you really did it the hardest way possible.
Right.
Because, it just means that there's a complete lack of job security.
Right.
It means that, I'm trying to support a family of 4 on my, on a split salary income with my writing partner, and there are years where we didn't get hired. There are years where we had to take 2 jobs, just to make our monthly nut. So it's an interesting business, because, like,
did you just say monthly nut?
Yeah, that's a phrase that I've heard people use to, like, just describe how much they need to, like, you know, be able to pay their rent and their mortgage and their health insurance. And
that sounds a lot more inappropriate than it actually is.
no, it was not a dirty joke. It was actually a fairly honest appraisal of what it is. Like, you know, I know that people, you know, I know a lot of people want to break into television, and I know a lot of people, you know, probably view it from the outside as fairly glamorous.
Right.
And like, and I totally get that. And like, I'm very fortunate to have the jobs that I've had. But the flip side is, there are years where I ran out of money.
Right.
There are years where, like, you know, I had to take a loan from a relative just to, you know, just to cover my rent. I mean, I remember one year as a grown man, I was already a dad at the time. I had to, you know, I don't know how many Jewish listeners you have, but I had to bring in my bar mitzvah bonds, which were gifts that I had got when I was 13, and like, you know, I literally like walked into the bank, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh my God, they're looking at me like I'm literally the world's least successful Jew.
Right.
You know, like who's going to trigger some alarm in Haifa? Like, oh my God, these bonds aren't real. What, you know? But you know, there have been So like, there are years I do okay, and there are years where you hope to scrape by, and I think that is probably far more of a common situation amongst you know, sort of one of the, you know, I think people have got kind of swept up in the world of, like, you know, celebrity showrunners now, and they know the names of a lot of the, you know, sort of the bigger name, you know, like, you know, TV executive producers. But I think by and large, there's a lot of people, like, you know, I mean, it pays very well when it pays, but when you're not working, like, for instance, right now I'm not working. You know, in between, you know, seasons, I hope to go back to.
Hey, Brian, give me just a second. I gotta take this call. Just a second.
Okay.
Sorry to be unprofessional.
Hello, Chase. This is an automated.
Hold on, I think. Can you hear me now still?
Sorry, public transit. About upcoming trips.
Hold on. I think my. Oh, fuck. Hold on. Flip. Oh, flip. Oh, crap. My, hell, sorry about that. My internet crapped out because I'm using my, how to use my phone to tether because my, wireless card broke.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm back. But anyway, what were we talking about?
What were we talking about?
Oh, hell, you were talking about being the world's most unsuccessful Jew.
Oh, that is amongst the things I was talking about. That is true. But I think I was just talking about sort of the more, you know, like almost working class nature of the TV business, that a majority of the people are kind of just sort of going from job to job, and you're hoping to get work the next year, and you're hoping to not lose your health care. You know, I don't mean that in a pitying way, or you know. And I know, like, the pay is, like I said, the pay is very good when it's there, but like a lot of the time is downtime, and you spend the money, you burn through the money oftentimes that you make while you're working, when you're not working, and that's where, you know.
Right.
That's
now that brings me to a question. I'm sorry I cut you off there, but you've been in the business for what, 2 decades, just about.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you take rejection well when it comes to hey, we don't need you anymore, or sorry, this show's been canceled, or what have you?
Well, you know, you have to have a thick skin to do this,
right?
Which is not to say that I had a thick skin to begin with,
right?
You know, I think even by the standards of most TV writers, I'm pretty sensitive. Right. You know, like, I think the reason I became a writer is because my feelings are so sort of raw and exposed, and but the fact is, like, if you do this long enough, you're gonna be fired. Right. You're gonna be fired for reasons that you can't explain. You're gonna be on shows that are canceled when they shouldn't be. Right. People are gonna, like, there's so many things that I didn't know about the job before I launched into it, and maybe that's better. Maybe it was just a blind faith that I was like, I need to try this. But like, I didn't know that being a comedy writer involved very little actual writing.
Right. Now, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but you're talking so damn much.
And yet you did, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, just kidding. We're having a good time. We love each other somewhat.
Somewhat. Yes, that's
right. So,
what I was going to say is that, like, a lot, like, I don't know how much people know about how the TV production works, but a majority of your time is spent in the writer's room. Like, you've probably seen it on shows like 30 Rock or, even Dick Van Dyke, like, are fairly accurate. And, like, as you've seen on all those shows, it's like people sitting around a table. It's like jury duty, but for comedy.
Basically, what you're doing is coming up with ideas before you write them.
Correct.
That's kind of how it is with my book, because I don't know if you knew this, but my book is kind of sort of I use nursery rhymes and fairy tales as my basis, which is really weird. But I mean, inspiration literally strikes anywhere.
Right. No, you told me about that. Yes.
I saw this video and I was like, holy crap! I have to do something with this. Like, it was some sort of a piano recital type of thing. I don't know what the heck it was, but it was Mary Had a Little Lamb, and it was just a really well written piece of music. And I was like, and these random ideas just kept coming and coming and coming, to the point that I was just like, hey, I can't stop thinking about this. Let's work on it and see what I come up with. And oftentimes I come up with more stuff than I actually write, just to kind of see how it would boat over with my readers, or how it would fit into the story, or...
Yeah, is there a question there?
Sorry, I just wanted to ramble on for a second.
You wanted to plug your own book.
Yeah. It's not a...
but you make a couple interesting points, which are, when there's something that you have to write, you can't be stopped.
Right.
Like, I've seen so many people start writing things, start trying to break into the business, start, the pursuit of a writing career, and if you don't have the fire in the belly, combined with just a need to tell your story, people drop out, because it's not a fun way of necessarily making a living. And there's definitely easier ways and ways that can provide more stability and security. But that said, if you feel it and you need to tell a story, then there's nothing that can stop you, and you have to. And I think you have to pursue it. And the other thing you said, which is like, you probably write way more than you need, and I think that's crucial too, which is, so much of writing is rewriting, and just getting thoughts down and not being like your own worst internal editor is crucial. I think it's great to write as much stuff as you possibly can, and from there you can. I mean, most of writing is rewriting, so you go back and you do it again and again until you get it right. And I think that's also a valuable piece of advice that you alluded to. Right.
Now, expanding on that for a little bit. Has there ever been an idea that you pitched that people just didn't like? What, not necessarily in terms of, oh, hey, I have a show that I want to pitch, but hey, let's put in a joke about so and so, or let's make the story about so and so, and the writers were, hey, we don't think that's a good idea.
Oh yeah, I mean, 50 times a day. I mean, that's the job. The career of a TV writer is almost entirely rejection.
Right.
I mean, that's when we were talking about, like, having a thin skin, like, all you do all day is just throw ideas off the top of your head and have people, and have, like, whoever's in charge say no. But again, I didn't know that. I thought, like, hey, I'm going to become a writer, which means I'm going to sit in my office and write because I'm shy. Not, holy shit, my entire day is spent begging for approval and affection from the boss, who may or may not give it. Or even if the boss loves you, you're still going to get turned down 9 out of 10 times.
Right.
So like it is definitely not a career for those who are in love with their own ideas. Like because if you are, they're going to dispel you of that notion very quickly or run you out of the business, because those are sort of the two options.
Right. Now, I recently watched Ghostbusters. I think it was the week it came out, the new Ghostbusters film, because I worked at a cinema for a while, and that was definitely an enjoyable job. But I'm not gonna get into how much I hate my managers.
No, you probably shouldn't, unless you don't work there anymore. But.
Oh, I don't work there anymore. I quit. But anyway, so one of the things that I noticed about Ghostbusters, about life in general, as we've sort of advanced with the times, humor changes, and that's the most difficult part for me. The sort of the thing that I have issue with reboot culture nowadays. Every other show on TV nowadays is a reboot. Is comedy has changed. Like America's taste in comedy has changed. What people find funny has changed. I'll admit there have even been a couple of jokes in a Fuller House that I'm not necessarily comfortable with. But it's sort of important to realize. What's funny now, or what's funny in 1984 isn't as funny now. So my question is, have you ever written a joke that you just thought? Have you ever written a joke that sort of pushed the envelope a little bit?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Give me an example.
Oh Jesus, I can't even. I don't have one off the top of my head.
Right.
I mean, but you make a couple. There's a couple points I want to address from what you just said. Well, number one, every show, every movie, every piece of written work has its own tone, its own audience, its own feel, and part of my job as a journeyman writer, on the one hand, is to be able to sort of fit into any kind of dynamic and write in that voice. I've been on shows, like Wilfred and Andy Richter Controls the Universe. Shows that are really sort of at that time were on the cutting edge of the comic world. Right. And then I'm on right now. I'm on a show. I'm on a show like you mentioned. I'm on Fuller House, in which what passes for an acceptable joke on Fuller House is not going to be the same joke. Right. Get away with on Wilfred. Right. You could get away with on Two Broke Girls. They're not. So you have to have the ability to adjust, and people who rigidly, if you rigidly have your tone, your style of joke, and you expect it to get in on any show,
right? Exactly.
That's not going to be the career for you, because you have to know your audience. Right. And I'm curious what you thought was too offensive.
Oh yeah, no, it's not. It's not that it was too offensive. It's just what the hell kind of joke is this for such a family-friendly show? It was in the first season. I think it was maybe 4 or 5 episodes in the first season. I think it was the episode where Jackson was hiding out in Jesse's car when Jesse went back to California or whatever. And oh shit, what the hell was it? Oh no, I know what it was. So
I don't know. I remember there being one joke first season about his about Jackson's volcano.
Right. There was a joke. It was he was talking to Becky on the phone, and he was like, "Oh, are you gonna give me the Jesse special?" And then he says, "Don't make me give myself the Jesse special." Which
that was in there. You're right, and that's Well, okay, so let me respond to that, which is, like, perfectly, the Fuller House tone of family comedy is not something that comes naturally for me to write. I would always rather write more adult stuff. A majority of my credits are more adult. So I'm, even knowing what the standard is in the room, I'm going to continually push to try to make things more adult, to try to create a bigger tent. Now, one could say, like, hey, that you're doing the exact opposite of what Fuller and Full House exist for, which is to provide, safe family entertainment. And people can, people can see the exact same thing and have, like, completely...
Right. Exactly.
On the one hand, like, I read reviews of season 1, and they were like, this show is so out of touch with, like, the modern comic sensibility.
Oh, dude, I have a whole community of people that just rip on Fuller House, and I'm just like, looking at you.
Not sure you had to share that with me, but let's see. Like, so on the one hand, you have people say,
sorry, I cut you off, but it's difficult to please everybody, and I think that's a reality that people have to realize. Where they're writing is not everybody is going to find something relatable or funny, Yeah,
no, that's exactly right. You have to know your audience, because, as I was saying, on the one hand, you have people saying, "Wow, it's too saccharine, it's out of touch, it feels anachronistic, it's like an old-fashioned show,"
Right.
No comedies are like this. It was old-fashioned even at the time, And then on the other hand, I'm not going to get into the specifics, but, like, I know that certain cast members were really taken to task by after the first season, because they thought the show was too tawdry and too grown up and too sexual, and not the super safe, family show that they had been accustomed to and that they were expecting to put their children in front of. So here you have two entirely different responses to the exact same piece of material. A show ultimately will find its voice. I think seasons 2 and 3 of Fuller House have fewer of the sort of grown-up, innuendo-laden jokes that you just cited.
Right.
I think they realize that that's not the show's bread and butter.
And not that joke wasn't funny, because I lost my shit laughing, but, like, certain things, certain people are going to get offended by certain things, and that's nobody's fault.
It all depends on who you're trying to reach. I think first season there was a far more concerted effort to try to reach not just children watching it for the first time, but to reach people who grew up with the original Full House and are now in their 30s and sometimes 40s, who, like, the original pitch, as pitched to me when I took the job, was it's Full House meets Sex and the City. It's not a show about children. It's a show about these 3 women who are now grown up and they're navigating navigating adulthood. So I think there was a little more latitude and leeway given in the first season.
Right.
I think, after the, sort of the response came in, people realized that probably the show's more natural sweet spot is as a family show. And it's important, again, it's important for even me to remember that. I fight against it all the time. I always want it to be more grown up. I always want it to be more like a show that I myself would watch. And then I spoke at my kids' career day last year, and, like, every single kid had seen every episode of Fuller House. It was every kid's favorite show. I answered questions for 2 hours. Kids stayed after and asked for my autograph and took pictures with me. And, like, I'm nobody. It's not my show. I'm just a writer on it. So you forget how impactful what you write can be on a certain audience, and
Right.
like when it comes to again, Fuller House doesn't have to be a show that I myself would sit down and watch in my free time.
Right.
For fourth and fifth graders, because it's their favorite show, and that is, I think that's a vital lesson that I continue to relearn, which is you write for a certain audience.
Right.
And what you want is to have that audience feel things intensely, rather than just being a show that nobody cares about that much across a bunch of different ages. So.
Right. I've also noticed that in the last two seasons, because the first season was just, basically, I love the first season, don't get me wrong, but one thing I noticed was basically the whole season was, hey, don't forget that Full House existed 30 years ago. Like, there were a lot of, they even recreated the last scene of the pilot of the original Full House, and I've noticed that, it's sort of, there are 2 or 3 references to the older show, but it's definitely died down. Why do you think you guys have stopped referring to the original as much as you did with the first season?
Well, it's easy now to forget, sort of in light of other reboots like Grace and Gilmore Girls and One Day at a Time, but
Right.
when Fuller House came out, and it wasn't that long ago, but it was 2 years ago. The idea of rebooting a show that had been off the air for over 20 years was completely uncharted territory. So I think, I think there was probably more of a concerted effort to try to bridge that gap and remind people of the show and to sort of service the nostalgia. But what we found, we've now done, 3 seasons, 4. We've now done 44 episodes, and what we found is that, this show sort of exists on its own.
Right.
Not that it's not always beholden to the original Full House.
Right.
As it's, it is part of that overall lineage.
Right.
But I think this show has found its own voice. I think there's lots of people out there who love Fuller House but haven't necessarily seen the original Full House. Like
Right.
whereas in the beginning, I think we were more relying on just sort of trying to fill in the holes that existed between the two shows and tap into the nostalgia. I don't think that nostalgia is as necessary.
Right.
That said, we do have the legacy cast members. That's sort of the polite way of referring to the old timers. That's
Yeah.
Jesse, Danny, Joey, and Becky, and they're all back. They're all back in season 3 for, I think, the same amount they were back in prior years, and I don't know if I'm breaking new news, but I do think that they, in fact, may be back even a little more in season 4. Because
so you just confirmed season 4. You heard it first. America.
Well, no, again, I say that with a caveat being, assuming there is a season 4.
Right.
There is a season 3B, which is not aired yet.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that because I was like, wasn't there only 9 episodes for season 3A?
Yes, and I've had a lot of kids between the ages of 10 and 12 screaming at me saying, there were only 9 episodes, and I have to explain to them, actually you're getting 18 this year, and the next 9 are coming up real soon. But I know people were, a lot of people were pissed off that they got a cliffhanger on an airplane after 9 episodes. But no, they're actually getting far more in season 3 than they ever have before, and I hope there's a season 4 because I'm planning on going back, and I could use the living, so I'm hoping. I don't know a circumstance in which there wouldn't be.
Right.
With what little numbers that Netflix has provided over the years in terms of ratings, because that's sort of their hallmark is to not give you numbers. I do know that it is by far one of their highest rated shows.
Right.
By all metrics, and that includes total viewers 18 to 49, and binge numbers.
Right.
I.e., the most binged watched over that first weekend.
Oh yeah, dude, I watched the whole thing, and I watched the whole thing in a day when it first came out.
Well, there you go. Then thank you for doing that.
Speaking of Netflix higher rated shows, I know we were talking about Stranger Things briefly for a little bit a couple days ago.
That's right.
What did you think of the series overall? Well, the first season, because you haven't seen the second season, which I highly recommend, by the way.
I will. As I said, I promised you I would watch it, but not before this interview, because I don't want to rush through it.
Right.
No, I loved it. I mean, I get the appeal. I mean, it's a modern story, but couched in a very soothing, for someone of my generation, a very soothing glow of 80s nostalgia. Now, admittedly, like I got the references to sort of E.T. and the Spielbergian universe.
Right. Yeah.
I am admittedly I am not as savvy on like the Stephen King references, which apparently were just as prevalent.
Right.
But I mean, it's a fascinating thing in that they were able to tell the story. I mean, two guys who were relative unknowns were able to tell the story they wanted to tell, and I think it was really helped by packaging it in a way that felt very comfortable, very soothing. I mean, everything from the cast to the typeface of the of the credits to the appearance of people like Writer and Matthew Modine. So it's a very good show, but it's also a very shrewdly marketed show.
Right.
Which is something that I come across or sort of butt up against a lot. Like I had an idea for a show, and I wrote over this past break. It's the first pilot that I've ever written on my own, and there was no one who said oh my god, it's a badly written show.
Right.
But I don't think anyone really knew how to market it. It was a show about my father's suicide, and it was sort of as a half-hour comedy, which one might say a comedy about suicide is always
that's literally
a bit of a book, but I think Hollywood is still governed by big tent poles and things that are easy to sell and easy to market, and and I'm very cognizant of the fact that wouldn't have been the easiest sell. Albeit I thought it was incredibly personal, and so sometimes you just have to write for your own cathartic benefit, and I think that was a case of that. But so just even within the same month, I was writing something that was very upbeat and happy on Fuller House, while simultaneously writing something that was incredibly painful and true about my own family's dissolution after the patriarch's suicide. So again, just within the same amount of time, I'm writing things that are sort of the polar opposite in terms of tone and feel and use of humor. But I think that's one of the joys and benefits of writing, is that you can, even within comedy writing, you can tap into all different kinds of emotions.
Right, exactly, yeah.
And I do think there's more opportunity in the new TV market for a wider range of thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
With the Amazons and the Netflix and Showtimes and HBOs, there's a lot more different kinds of things that fall under the general
right.
TV sitcom than there used to be when we were growing up.
Okay, so I thought of a question a while back, but I just remembered it. I think in the original show, I think Kimmy Gibbler only had Kimmy Gibbler only had a sister. I think there was a lot of error with continuity because one episode they said she had 3 sisters, and then one episode she had 1 brother, and then now Jimmy is a main character in season 3. Do you think there's a lot? Do you pay any sort of special attention to continuity?
Yeah, quite a bit actually. I don't. I mean, well, let me answer it 2 ways. One, I wasn't on the original show, and I was
right.
in the original show. So, if someone was relying on continuity, they're not coming to me. So that's one response. The second response, I do know she had a brother. I know she had a brother, Garth Gibbler.
Yeah.
Who was referenced but never seen in the original. That said, it doesn't mean that she did not also have a brother, Jimmy, who I named. And, once you come up with the name Jimmy Gibbler, I don't think there are times when going for the comedy is going to outweigh sort of the need to please every continuity nerd.
Exactly, yeah.
No, obviously, I mean, you've sort of asked the question in both ends, which is, are we paying too much lip service to the original show? And then you're asking, are we paying not enough lip service to the original show?
Right.
I think, again, we are keenly aware that there are people who are obsessed with the original, and so the goal is not to do anything that sort of goes against the narrative and the lineage. I mean, that's why we have what was it, Kathy Santini?
Kathy Santoni, whatever the hell her name is.
Kathy Santoni was back, and Harry, who Harry was back, who
I think
Stephanie had married in the original Holy Mattress Money.
Oh yeah, that's
Mattress Money episode.
Yeah.
Viper was back.
Right.
So I know that that there's people love seeing the return even of bit characters. I mean, I was that way with the Brady Bunch. I could name 50 different characters that have about one line, but I'm obsessed with them, and I know the Full House.
Right. I think. Hold on. Brian, did I lose you here, dude? Hold on. What happened? Hold on. Ah, crap. Jeez. I think I might have lost you here, dude. Give me a second. Yep. Sorry about that. My internet is ridiculous.
Okay, no problem. We'll go a little further, and then we'll wrap it up. But
Yep. So, something I was going to ask. There was I think her name was Rocky, Gia's daughter.
Yes. Gia from Girl Talk.
Right. Now that was one of my favorite actresses right now is the girl that played Gia's daughter, because she's also in a Disney Channel show. What the hell is it called?
Yeah, no, I don't.
Where?
I don't watch Disney Channel. So
where do they sort of hey, we've got this? How do you look for child actors? I don't know if that's really a question. What sort of is there any sort of criteria?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I have nothing to do with casting of the show.
Right.
There's casting people and the executive producer. So, Jeff Franklin. That's sort of his purview. But he's always been, he's always been very skilled. Now, twice he's been able to find kid actors who are just incredibly skilled. I know they were very fortunate this time around in finding Elias Harger, who plays Max.
Oh yeah, he's great.
I know he's sort of a lot of, I love the characters of Ramon as well, but I know that for Max is a very unique voice on TV and
right.
Pacific.
Hold on, I think I lost you again. Give me a second.
I'm here.
Okay, no, there you go. I got a couple more questions and then we'll wrap it up.
You got it.
What do you think is the most controversial? What do you think is one of the most controversial TV episodes of all time, in your opinion?
Most controversial, huh? I mean, it's funny, like what passes for controversy,
right?
Sort of always, shifts with the time,
right?
And there are things like on Melrose Place when they showed like the first guy-on-guy kiss.
Oh yeah, that was
it was a huge deal
right.
at the time, and the camera cut away, and even that, there was like the fear of them losing advertisers,
right.
And now the exact same thing wouldn't
right, exactly right.
You wouldn't bat an eye, whereas a lot of the things on the Norman Lear shows in the 70s, namely All in the Family and Maude,
right.
that you could do then, you couldn't do now.
Right.
So, like specifically, the episode about abortion,
right?
Where Maude gets an abortion. I know it was incredibly controversial at the time,
right.
But that's it. But I honestly don't think a network sitcom in this day and age would ever even touch abortion.
Right.
So it's kind of a paradox in the sense that there are some things that we've sort of moved forward on,
right,
and are now just are just given and are part of the discussion,
right.
Like gay marriage, like gay equality, like the Ellen episode, so controversial in '97. Is just sort of par for television now.
Right.
I know there's even a gay character coming out on a Disney Channel show now.
Right.
And I don't even know that that's controversial. Whereas something like abortion, we've become less likely to talk about as the years have passed, not more likely. So it is always the line is always moving as to what is and what isn't acceptable. It has to do with where we are as a society now, but it also has to do again with your audience.
Right.
Joke you would do on Will and Grace, you wouldn't do on Fuller House.
Right.
A show you would do on a joke you would do on Broad City,
right.
You definitely wouldn't do on Fuller House. So
yeah. I got a couple more questions.
I mean, I would try. I would tell it in the room,
yeah.
but I mean, it's not going to get on TV.
Right. What was I going to say? Oh, you also worked on. Did you also work on New Adventures of Old Christine, I believe, for a couple of episodes?
Yeah, I was there the whole first season.
Oh wow. Did you have any? Did you directly work with Julia Louis-Dreyfus?
Sure. Yeah. No, she is as good as you think she is.
Oh man, I can imagine.
I mean, even then, I remember saying to someone, like, I really think that she is the Michael Jordan of sitcom acting. And that was even, this was a decade before Veep, where arguably, she's taken it to a whole other level. But I know there are people out there who, and I read an article about this recently, that they think her performance on Old Christine is actually her best performance, just because it's so nuanced and so specific to what, what a divorcee and a single mother and someone trying to date in their 40s was going through. But she's, I do not have a bad word to say about her.
Right.
She's awesome. I know she's going through some health stuff now, and I wish her all the best.
Oh, I didn't know that. So Julia Louis-Dreyfus, if you're watching for some strange reason, we're pulling for you.
That's great. Yes.
Is there a show that you Is there anything that you've rejected that you regret, or anything that you would like to have been given an opportunity to write on, but have never gotten it?
Huh. That's a good one. I know we turned down a meeting on Gossip Girl the first season.
Oh yeah, that ended up being pretty big, actually.
It ended up being pretty big, but I don't know that we necessarily would have gotten it.
Right.
On the one hand, and even if we had got it, it's so not my voice and my sensibility
right.
that I'm afraid had I been there, that maybe it wouldn't have been as good or as fun.
Right.
You know, I know my daughter would have loved if I had taken that job.
Right.
But you know, there have been jobs that we've been up for that we didn't get that might have been like sort of game changers career-wise.
What's an example of one, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, we had an interview to be on season 8 of Friends.
Oh wow!
And also season, I think, 5 or 6 of Frasier. You know, both of those would have sort of like fun. You know, I think would have fundamentally changed the trajectory of our careers.
I think being offered the job is definitely a testament to how talented you are as a writer. So I would definitely take it as a compliment.
Yeah, we didn't get the job offer, but we got the job interview.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I know we came pretty close on both. You know, those kind of jobs on massive hit shows don't open up very often. Right. Nobody leaves. You know, and when they do open up, they're opening up to people who are coming in with big credits behind them. You know, so like if they're going to replace the people on Friends or Frasier, you know, there were plenty of people from Will and Grace and Everybody Loves Raymond to take those jobs. So that, you know, that's always been a real trick about our career specifically, is we never had that one giant credit that opened every door.
Right.
And I don't mean that in a boo-hoo way, but I just mean, you know, I know I look at some people's resumes and it's like,
right.
You know, Larry Sanders and The Simpsons and Seinfeld, you know, like, you know, there are people who've sort of been able to navigate it at that upper level, and our level has always been very respectable, but, you know, more journeyman credits, you know.
Right, exactly.
There are some that have been, you know, better than average, like Old Christine and 8 Simple Rules, and you know, shows like that, or kind of cult favorites like Wilfred or Andy Richter. But you know, we haven't had the one that's opened every door, and you know, but then you got to sort of create your own.
Right.
Without that, you have to create your own momentum and your own fate, and that, you know. So for that, it means writing our own material, or you know, writing these articles that I've been doing on Huffington Post, and just trying to have my own voice, and you know, that's why I've taken to Twitter and Facebook. Just anything that, you know, you can put your name out there. I know people breaking in will make their own short films, or they'll post their own Vines, or they'll have their own YouTube channel. You know, there's a million ways of getting attention these days that didn't exist when I was first breaking in, and I think it's exciting for people, in that you can create your own destiny. So I encourage people just to keep writing, find a venue that best serves your talent, and then get your name out there in any way possible. And someone will find you.
Right. All right. So we're gonna wrap it up. So the last question I'm gonna be asking is, what do you think was your favorite TV finale of all time?
Ooh, that's a
a loaded question, right?
That's a loaded question. I mean, I'm trying to think what comes to mind. The ones that come to mind just immediately are the original Newhart, not the Bob Newhart show, but the Newhart show.
Right.
In large part just because there was a twist ending that was so mind-blowing you couldn't believe they went for it.
Right.
That whole series had been a dream, by the characters from
yeah.
the original Bob Newhart. So that was awesome in its own way. I loved the Breaking Bad ending. Felt perfect to me, especially with, like, I don't want to spoil it, but him getting his comeuppance while they play the Badfinger song, "Be Blue" at the end. That one comes to mind. I know the Lost finale was very controversial in certain circles, but I found it. I don't know. I still found it incredibly moving.
Right.
I don't know that I could entirely explain it.
Right.
But those three come to mind. I remember thinking that Seinfeld was a huge misfire.
Yeah, I didn't like that finale either. I mean, it was just clip shows I don't necessarily like, because a clip show to me means, we can't come up with an original idea right now, so let's just flash back to previous episodes.
Yeah, and like the Seinfeld one wasn't like a clip show per se, but it did bring back almost every character as if it were a clip show. So I remember that being somewhat unsatisfying. Whereas I don't think about the Friends finale all that often, but I do recall that it was very satisfactory to those who had sort of invested 10 years in a lot of those relationships. And that's, you don't want a finale to be obvious, and you don't want it to be pandering, but you do want it to be emotionally satisfying and emotionally resonant, especially when people have put in a lot of years hoping and wishing certain relationships.
I'll tell you one that completely destroyed me. It was the How I Met Your Mother finale.
Yes.
Oh my dude, I was so, like, when it first came, like, because I didn't get into it up until about season 5.
Right.
So around the time season 5 was actually out, I was, watching the whole thing from the beginning, just kind of get caught up on things, and I fell in love with the story immediately. I was so invested. It went on for 5 years after that, and I just think it was a cop out. Honestly, I think that's what it was. I mean, I don't want to say I'm not satisfied with the ending, but at the time, it was just, you just freaking wasted 10 years of everybody's life. I mean, it was incredibly well done now that I think about it, because you knew Ted and Robin were going to end up together in the first place, but
then you didn't.
Yeah, right.
But then they spent years steering away from that.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, some of the stuff about the mom dying, that was I found that somewhat impactful. But I will say that I didn't give the show 10 years.
Right.
Let me put that. That was another one we met on first season.
Oh, man.
We didn't get the job, but so that was a job that like could have lasted 10 years.
Oh yeah.
So that's I'm gonna put that one up there in the high regret category.
Right. Yeah. I've got one more question for you, and then we'll wrap up.
Sure.
What the hell is going on with Mary-Kate and Ashley? Like, what do we have any sort of? Are we talking about them being involved in the future, or are they just gonna kind of?
Yes, they're definitely. No, I don't know. I know that they are. The show would be happy to have them whenever they wish to appear. I don't know that anyone is holding their breath.
Right.
They are incredibly successful and incredibly talented in a field that has nothing to do with this. I don't know that either of them necessarily. Put it this way: if either of them loved acting, I think they would be acting.
Right, exactly. That's what we were.
I think they found their passion.
Right.
They found their calling. So they also, that said, they know that they are welcome. They would be welcomed with open arms anytime they wanted to. They chose to return in whatever capacity, in whatever form it would be.
Right.
I have no hints to give you. I have no.
I knew you weren't involved, because I don't know if you remember me telling you that I had a group that I was in. I was just asking, hey, I'm interviewing a pretty successful TV writer tomorrow, and if anybody has questions, put them down in this thread. And, that was one that a lot of people wanted me to ask, so I just asked it.
Of course, no. That is definitely I wish I had an answer like stay tuned and you'll see.
Right.
But so far I think just about everyone we've wanted to come back has been back. We got Girl Talk back together.
Oh yeah.
There's lots of there are some people coming back in the second half of
right.
There are some people coming back in the second half of season 3, but they're not gonna. I'm not gonna pretend that it's the Olsen twins.
Right.
It's not. So it's it'll be people who you're happy to see,
right.
but it's we might see some sets that we haven't seen in many years. There's some places that might be resurrected, and I know at least one actor or actress that's coming back that I think will put a smile on people's face. But again,
are they gonna bring back the Smash Club?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
I figure.
But don't be surprised if they do.
Right. I had one thing that I was gonna say, but I don't know what the fuck it was.
That's all right.
Oh shit! What the heck was it?
You wanted to thank me for coming?
Well, yeah, that. But it was something. What the hell? It'll come back to me. Something Full House related, but not quite. Oh shit! Oh no, I remember what it was now. I think one of my absolute favorite joke in the first season was when a DJ was asking about Michelle, and they were like, she was like, oh, she's running a successful fashion empire in New York.
Yeah, no, there's we try to keep the characters alive,
right,
as much as we can without them actually being there,
right.
So I know season 1 there were a few references to them. I know that the girls drunk dialed Michelle.
That was
her bachelorette party. I know there was the look to camera where they asked,
That was the strongest joke in the series so far, I think.
That was fun. I know in season 2 in the Thanksgiving episode, Uncle Jesse looks to camera and welcomes them to come back and play back in the Tanner house as well. So, I think as we go on, there's fewer and fewer invocations to Mary-Kate and Ashley, just because if it was going to happen, it might have happened already.
Right, exactly.
But that said, they are part of the show universe, and we're not going to pretend that they don't exist.
Right.
So any way to keep them alive in a fun way that's not meant to disparage them.
Right.
It's not meant to make fun of them, but meant to just in fun, just sort of remind the audience that there actually was another sister.
I see you take quite a few pictures with Stamos and post them on your Facebook feed. You guys got a bromance going on or something?
He's a handsome man. What can I tell you?
What's it like working with him?
He's great. He's terrific. He's the one who always says, "Let's take another picture," and I'm like, "Well, Uncle Jesse wants to take a picture with me. I'm not gonna let him down." So, he's super cool. I didn't really know him much until like this season.
Right.
He was around a lot more in season 3. So, yeah, he's terrific. He's a producer on the show. He's a terrific guy. And I think I'm almost to the point where I can call him a friend. So
here's one last question for you.
Okay. You realize this is your fourth last.
This is this is the fourth or fifth last question. I know.
This is gonna be long.
Is there a character that you want to see come back that hasn't come back yet? Well, dang, I think I lost you again. Hold on. Oh, shit. Give me just a second. Brian, you still here? Hell. Yeah, sorry about that. But anyway, my question was, is there a character that we haven't seen yet that you want, an original character that we haven't seen yet that you would like to see come back?
And I was turning the question back on you. Is there someone you'd like to see that we haven't serviced yet, short of the Olsen twins?
Let me see. Give me a second to think about that.
I know we haven't seen Danny's ex-flame Vicky yet.
Oh yeah. Oh, that'd be pretty interesting.
So I'm not making any promises, but that's certainly a possibility.
Right. Well, thanks for taking the time, man. I'm glad we finally got to do this.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Well, thank you for having me, and let me know when it's up and what it's called, and I'll let people
plug the hell out of it, basically.
I'll plug the hell out of it and let people know. But this was a long time coming. You're a good dude, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Absolutely. Thanks for inspiring me.
Oh, you bet. It's my pleasure. Take care, man.
All right.